Hello and welcome to episode 29. Happy Saturn New Year to you, Bronson.
Oh, thank you, and to you.
Thank you very much.
Do you feel like a new, fully formed person ready to take on the world?
Yeah, I feel like the pod is now in its mature thing where we're going to do something completely different and review a couple of games.
Maybe the podcast will get a fringe.
Maybe.
Yeah, or a highlight or a braid or maybe an ear piercing or maybe we'll just talk about some games.
Yeah, possibly the later.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about Farben.
Farben, and I'm going to be talking about Snowcrest. First one we're going to be talking about for this fine winter season, Snowcrest by Grail Games and designed by Philip Dubarry, art by Kerry Atkin. So Grail Games, Aussie publishers, and nice little production here. Snowcrest is a game for 1 to 4 players and plays about 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Set somewhere in Asia, I guess.
Okay.
It's like Asian winter mountains without any particular.
And like a particular era?
Yeah, I guess like.
Not modern?
Not modern, not that ages ago, I don't think. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a fantasy world. So it's kind of, it never really says exactly where. The idea is that you're all on this snowy village where life is hard and you have to fight to survive all these kind of curses and mountain spirits and everything else. Actually, when we read the rulebook the first time before we played it, we were like, this is going to be a rough game. Like, it just talked about starvation and death and cold. And but it's actually a fairly generous game. You get lots of stuff. And
tough in concept, but like chilling.
The setting is tough. Yeah. You're in a tough mountain winter environment, but it's actually a chill, nice little game with beautiful production. You've got all these beautiful cloth boards that you're using. What you're going to be doing in Snowcrest is building a 3x3 grid, which is your village. Mm-hmm. Each of those spots in the grid is a villager. And so on your turn, you either activate a villager that you have, and you're going to start with 5 villagers placed. You can place a new villager either in an empty space or over an existing villager to replace them. Or you can take a rest action. I'll get back to the rest action. That's a mandatory one. You won't get a choice when you do that. When you activate a villager or when you buy a new villager, you take all the abilities on that village card and then you flip it over. Mm-hmm. So it's face down. And then when you've got 3 in a row, either orthogonally or diagonally, then you have to take a rest action and then you flip all your village cards back up. Mm-hmm. And the villages you haven't used will give you stuff. And then the ones that you have used, well, you got the ability from them. And villages do all kinds of different stuff. They give you resources like barley and prayer bells and offering bowls. You can also collect juniper, which is in the forest. Ooh. So you go out and you cut down some juniper. The problem is whoever cuts down the last juniper tree angers the forest spirits and they come out and attack.
That was the spirit of the forests. That's their gin.
Yeah, that's their juniper. They like it and they don't want you cutting it down. So when the last juniper tree is cut down, the forest spirits like attack the person who cut down the last one, but everyone in the village also suffers. Yeah. So you'll suffer a curse, which usually means you've got to pay some resources. So you've got to like give the forest zombie a bit of barley or something so they feel happier.
A little bit like, the family household and the last person has the last Tim Tam. Yeah. And then doesn't write it on the shopping list.
That's it. Yeah. And, everyone suffers, but that person suffers extra.
Yeah.
And then all the juniper grows back and you can cut it down again.
Well, because there's always more Tim Tams.
Yeah, that's it. And so then you'll repeat that process. You can also, there's a meditation where basically you're like You tell everyone in the village, I'm meditating and I'm meditating better than you. And look at all the bells that I'm ringing to show how well I'm meditating. Then it would go around to Bronson and he'd be like, well, actually, I'm an even better meditator because look at these bells. And you ring your bells. And if you ring more bells than me, then I don't get any points for meditating, but you do because clearly you're meditating better. Then the next person around the table could meditate with even more bells and get more points, etc. But if you start the meditation and anyone that you beat who refuses to pay that many bells, you'll get points for that as well. So it's kind of like a who's the best meditator.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I think it's, Sushi Go Party. And there's those, like, if you have the most nigiri. Yeah. Is that right? Yeah, or the little
Maki rolls.
Maki rolls. If you have the first, then you get this much. The second, you get that much. Is it a bit like that where, like, there is a point where it's not worth competing, or is it always worth competing?
So when you're spending bells, you'll have a certain number of bells in front of you as actual bells. You might have villagers that you could say, I'm going to use this villager as a bell, and cards in your hand, which I can't see, that you could say as bells. So I might say I'm spending 3 bells to meditate, and you might look at your stuff. Now, if you can only do 1, then you're going to pass because there's no point you doing it. You got to beat me. But you might look and go, you know what? I could flip over all these villages. I could spend this, and then I'd get to 4, so I'd get a point. But you might also look at that and go, well, actually, I need those bells, so I'm not going to spend them now. And let me take the point. So there's that interesting kind of push and pull when someone meditates. Do I spend all my bells? Have they gone so high that even though I could beat them, like it feels like a lot of bells to spend for 1 point? Maybe I just let them have this now. They're obviously really enthusiastically ringing those bells. Maybe they should do that. I don't know a lot about meditation, but I didn't realize that it involved running through the streets, ringing a bell, telling everyone that you're meditating. But apparently, that's how you meditate well.
Absolutely. So. It's otherwise, you know, if a monk meditates in a snowy, harsh fantasy terrain without ringing a bell,
does he really meditate?
Yeah,
that's true. So the other thing that you can do is called veneration. This is where you take offering bowls up to the top of the mountain to venerate one of the ancient mountain spirits. I'll try that again. This is where you take some of your offering bowls up to the top of the mountain to venerate one of the ancient mountain spirits. The problem is the mountain spirits are jerks. And so when you awaken them, they just get angry. And they're like, well, now you have to pay me this amount of stuff. Else I'm going to trash your village. If you pay them that amount of stuff, you get a bonus. But whether you pay them or not, they then also inflict curses on all the rest of the village for not coming up and venerating them. So you start the veneration. It's a bit like that forest spirit kind of thing, where the person who starts it, in this case, can get a great reward, but they will be asked to pay lots of honor to in the form of resources or cards or etc. to the mountain spirit, and then everyone else kind of just gets dissed for not coming up and seeing the mountain spirit.
How do you find the balance on that? Like, is that risk reward? Are the like the costs of that veneration and the mountain spirits request high enough that it's really hard to achieve, or is it actually like a really easy way to neg other players?
It's a little bit of both, in the sense of you don't know what the mountain spirit's going to request of you. So there's a little bit of push your luck of, do I have enough buffers of stuff?
Yeah.
You know, they're never going to ask for an outlandish amount of stuff. So they're never going to be like, I need 5 barley. They could be like, I'm going to have 2 barley and 1 offering bowl off you. Something. Or maybe they're like, I want you to burn down one of your buildings and kill one of your villagers. Something. But it's always going to be that they're going to ask for 2 or 3 things, maybe. So you can sort of look at the stuff that you've got and go, well, I've got enough stuff that I could cover most combinations of 2 to 3 things, so I'm going to risk it. And I can also see around the table that everyone else is really low on stuff. So whatever the mountain god's angry at them at, they'll have to manage that. The other plus is whenever you can't afford a curse or you don't want to pay you can just take 1 negative point, which is pretty minor. Although the winning score, I think normally in our games has been like the winning score's been in the teens. So like 1 point is significant, but there are ways you can kind of gain that back. So you might be like, well, if I pay that, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a point because I can get more than a point out of what I could pay for this. Some of the villagers, their special ability is I let you ignore a curse that a mountain spirit or a forest spirit tries to inflict on you. So whatever the payment is, you're like, well, this villager satisfies that, and then I'll just activate this villager, and then, you know, when I rest, they'll come back again, which is really nice. There's also goals, you know, first person to get so much juniper, or first person to get this many villagers, or first person to make a mountain spirit really happy, etc. And you're all competing against those. The game ends once, depending on the number of players, you put a certain number of points in the middle of the table. And once all those points are gone, you make sure everyone has equal number of turns and then count up the points. Whoever has the most points wins.
Cool.
I do love the art on this. Everything does kind of give that. It just kind of reminds me maybe a little bit of sort of Monkey Magic. Journey to the West kind of vibes.
For the audio listener, I'm doing summoning the cloud with, you know, or like Avatar: The Last Airbender, you know, for that generation of the audience.
Yeah, for sure. And so it does have that kind of, you know, slightly Tibetan, slightly Japanese, slightly Chinese. There is a mishmash of those kind of cultures in there, but it does have that kind of epic monastery,
Tibetan
snow
flags.
Yeah, all kind of nice. And so I really like the artwork. All the villagers do lots of different stuff. They're all really easy to understand what they do, whether they give you barley or they let you change resources into resources, or they avoid curses, or they build buildings in your village, etc. And so there's lots of different ways you can kind of approach it. Often when you're watching, you're sort of like, wow, that person's really good at chopping down trees, which then they might not necessarily do that all the time, but what they can do is go, well, I'll chop down just enough trees that there's one juniper left. So next time Bronson wants to go get some juniper, he's going to have to anger that forest spirit. Which is, so there's some really interesting push and pull with it. And, you know, it's over in less than 45 minutes, but you kind of feel like you've achieved something in that time.
What's the teach like for a first player?
Pretty easy. Once it did take me a little while to get my head around the rules reading through the rule book from the first time. But then once we started playing, a lot of things kind of fell into place. It was like, that's what that means. Because obviously this is the way we do it. Some of the bits, especially like how meditation works and what happens sometimes in particular edge cases where you're like, well, does this bit happen first or does that bit happen first? Some of those are a little bit tricky, but the game really flows once you get started. And I found like the second time that I played it and was teaching it, it was probably a 5 to 10 minute teach. It's actually really simple. One thing I would say is on the back of the rule book, there's a really nice icon reference guide, which you can kind of see. It shows you all the icons, and that covers every single village and every single spirit.
Really cool semiotics there. Like, I feel like at a glance I can grasp a decent amount of what these things do and how like some things interact like to one side or the other side, or it's a draw or a discard, or these are resources. It's very much giving that like sort of Seven Wonders, like real polished sort of iconography.
So there has been a lot of work in the graphic design. Both it looks beautiful, but it also communicates that what you need really easily. The only thing I would say is it would still probably be good if the player aids had those icon reference guide on them. You do have a player aid and it shows you what you can do on your turn. You've only got 3 actions that you can take, and so it quite easily explains those. I feel like on the other side of that player aid, you could have had these icons and that would have been ideal.
But hey, you know what? If you have an A4 standard, you know, Canon printer or access to an Officeworks, I feel like you could just scan that page, do 5, maybe even, you know, if you're feeling real fancy, splurge out for the guillotine.
And cut it into nice pieces. This would be a really easy player aid if you needed to make it. And honestly, even though I say it would be nice to have a player aid, after you've played it once, you're never really going to need that again. Because, as you said, a lot of them make a lot of sense. There's just very occasional bits where you're like, what's this symbol mean again? And it's just because you haven't used it in your village. Yeah. I'm really glad to have had played it, and definitely next CanCon I'll be pushing this to a number of people because it's just a really solid mid to lightweight Euro that has some cool choices in it, and I feel like suits CanCon really well. So I hope Grail Games has done well with this because I think they, it hasn't gotten a lot of buzz that I've heard by lots of different people. But I think it's actually a really solid game that they've done a really good production with. So it kind of deserves a little bit more buzz.
Yeah, I mean, it looks flush. It looks interesting. Like it has this really distinct sort of style to it. The play pieces as well. I love when they're like not conventional, cloth play pieces. Like what a shout out to the like era that it's reflecting, but also those ancient board games. I'd really like to see what's happening with this game in the future, and I guess next year at CanCon, show us you're a true blue Aussie fan.
Yeah, that's it. And look, Snowcrest feels different to a lot of other Euros that I've played. There's not sort of a particular Euro that I'd be like, it feels like that.
Yeah.
It's a tableau builder, and so it does have lots of common with those, but the way that you're manipulating that 3x3 grid and caring where things are and which ones you flip.
And it has to reset all the time. So you're not like in that sort of sense of defeat that comes with late game Wingspan, where you see someone else's engine and it's like, what's the point? That sort of like keeps the gameplay alive.
Yeah, and I've played games of this where people haven't even bothered to fill their village. They've just got a small bit and they're like, I'm just going to activate these villages. That's the way I've gone because I've got this little combo and I'm going to try and run them. And that can work really well. Or you can go for a big sprawling 9 villages. I mean, that's a big village, 9 villages. So, go with that.
Well, there you go.
That's Snowcrest.
Monkey magic. This game, it's kind of serendipitous. This has come up, in the review today. I guess not to like date a podcast too much because that's big no in the pro podcasting world. But we've recently had Aurora Australis, lots of fun, wonderful colours.
It was beautiful. First time I'd seen it in my life. So yeah.
And on top of that, I'm actually having a nice quality Euro summer coming up soon. This is not a Euro, but Farben is Deutsch for colours.
Yeah.
And also I only played it the other day. So, Farben, designed by Apolline Chauve, a French designer, but a German game.
Nice.
Came out in 2018, and this edition is published by Stronghold Games. And what is it? It's a game about colours, and it's a game about storytelling, relating colours to a prompt and a story, but also trying to remember all of these things. I love this game. It is so simple, but the teach is simple as long as the players are willing to give up their notions, their preconceptions of what is a game.
Instead of trying to guess what the rules are, just listen to what the rules are. And go there.
I know there's cards and there's colours, but there's no draw twos. There's no and then this section of the game is one section, but there's 3 sections, and then there's play and draw and so it's simple as long as you're willing to go with it. There's a couple of stages to this game. 3 to 5 players start with a hand of colors and the shades, black and white, and a rainbow card, and then you go around in your clockwise fashion, as is the convention for most games. So it's not that radical.
It's sticking with some tried and true.
You got to in some way. But there'll be these prompt cards with 2 sides, giving the player a choice. For example, I've got one here, anger, but on the other side, curiosity. And then all the players have to quietly think of a story. It can be long, short, one word, haiku, whatever you want. But to try and associate one of the colors that they're choosing to a story that is prompted by that word. When all the players have told their stories, those cards then go face down underneath that prompt card. And those prompts are like put in the middle of the table until about 10 of those prompts have been prompted.
Yep.
And then we get into the second phase of the game, which is giving other players the prompt, and they have to try and remember who chose what color for that prompt. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun, you know. On the one hand, like, you're trying to get in the spirit and the joy of telling fun stories and, you know, doing so in the way that gravitates to you. Some, like myself, I can get a bit gremlin-y. I can get a bit like whatever the convention of the stories is. Let's say it's a 4-player game. 3 people are telling pretty like normal, chill, like perfunctory stories, you know. Then I'll do the wild card and like I chose brown for curiosity because curiosity killed the cat and all cats are brown. And that's an objective truth, which, you know, hot take is not an objective truth. I believe there are cats that are not brown.
I've never seen one, so, you know.
That's right.
Here at TBC, we say cats are brown.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you know, I'm going to reveal a little bit of my own naivety. But I really fed into that goblin energy the last time I played this game and revealed to my partner who... This is so embarrassing. Have you, are you familiar with the common misconception that, like, blood is blue? Not red, or, like, it gets...
Yeah, like blue blood and...
So not blue blood like royals, but, like, non-oxygenated blood.
Like when you look at your veins, you're like, oh, that looks blue.
Yeah. So I still believed that up until this, and so I was like... Yeah, my partner's put down, like, red for health because of blood and healthy blood. And I'm like, wait, hang on, isn't, like, blood blue? Oh, yeah, anyway, so I guess much like the Saturn's return, you know, I have come anew and found out that I am
so it's
an
educational
idiot.
As well.
It can be. It has opportunities to be. I think this is... and there is a scoring phase to this game, but, yeah, I think this is much like... Apples to Apples, as is, has been recently reviewed.
Or like Just One, or Concept.
Hanabi.
Yep.
They're all games that have a score phase, but I don't think is at the core of the game. It doesn't motivate the play.
Yep.
I think what motivates the play for this and those games are the people you're playing with and the way you engage with that storytelling.
Yep.
So it says it's a 45 to 75 minute game.
Okay.
I think about 20 minutes of that is playing the game.
Right.
The rest is laughing and telling wacky stories and trying to figure out how you're going to associate a color to the word family when it's one of the last prompts left and you've only got like gray, black, pink and brown.
Yeah. So is there a bit of tactics or strategy going, like, after you've played a couple of times, going, these colors are easy to get rid of, so I'm gonna like try and get rid of my brown or something early while I can. You know, I might, so, you know, maybe we're thinking, you know, anger. I could be like, red is so easy. I could go red for anger because, you know, rage, whatever. But maybe I go, actually, I need to get rid of grey. So I'm going to think, like, you know, I get angry when I see like a sea of grey suits and I just think, corporate America.
Yes. I love it. I love it. That's definitely the way to play the game, I think, is to challenge your idea of what is the easy color for this prompt. Only that, anger might have come up, and red and anger, but also passion's in there.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, hang on. And then you think about how absurd it is that, like, oh, some of these colors seem easier than others.
Yeah.
When they're all colors. It's not like we have fuchsia or maroon, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, grey, brown, black, white. In preparation for today, I checked out Board Game Geek's review of this game at Spiel in 2018 when this game was released.
Yep.
They were saying that there were like a good 29, I think it was, different iterations of colors.
Oh, right, yeah.
And color combination. Like, what are the colors to have for this? If you look into there's these anthropological indicators of language and...
Yeah, I've heard that, like, languages don't come up with blue before they've come up with...
Red.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
It's weird, but yeah. But then, like, like English just has blue, but lots of other languages have two colors,
like
which
a sky
they would consider blue.
Or a deep blue.
Yeah, for them, like, dark blue and light blue are two different colors, in the same way we would say, like, purple and pink are two different colors.
Indigo and violet, we're taught at such an early age, but in adulthood, I don't know that I've ever had to delineate between those two.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just the color of my life.
Maybe.
But I do. I really think that it's such a fun game. You've just got to let go of even though I've grouped it to games like Cards Against Humanity, it's not really like Cards Against Humanity.
I mean, it feels like it's pushing into that kind of thoughtful party game with still that mix of kind of frivolity and kind of chaos, but also there's a little bit of thinking involved of, okay, you've got to come up with a cohesive story here. You have to be remembering what other people have said rather than just, I'm going to say something silly in Apples to Apples and then I never have to remember that again.
Yeah.
And I don't really have to pay attention to whatever you said either.
Yeah. It is a very thoughtful kind of Zen sort of game. There isn't like a lot of shouting over each other.
Yeah.
Or like voting for whose story was the funniest or anything. And then when it comes to the actual memory and trying to pick the cards, I feel like that part of the game is done cooperatively than more than competitively.
Yeah, sure.
Although the creator of the game has released a second game, a spiritual successor that updates Farben to be cooperative, which is called Remember, but the me is in caps.
Yep.
It's a competitive game, but that's in big scare quotes. You know? It's as competitive as you want to be, and when you're telling stories with people at a table, you tend not to be that competitive.
It's about enjoying the storytelling.
I recommend this for anyone who's trying to maybe start their board game collection. It's a must for anyone who's a board game dragon, has to have a weird game that might have only one sort of utility, but you gotta have it. This is for them. But I also think this is for someone who's trying to build a minimalist sort of small but complete board game collection. I think this is one of those social party games that's language focused, that's lush but also minimalist in its design. It doesn't take up a lot of space. This is for them. I do not, although it might appear at first that this is a quick party game, I do not recommend going, this is our quick game. This is not a palate cleanser game or a quick starter before we get into the complicated thing. Because, after you've spent that much time laughing and telling stories with each other, it can be a little draining. So, it's deceptively big, but so easy to play. That's Farben.
Two games that we've talked about, Snowcrest and Farben. So Bronson, how would you describe the color of these games? What color would you use to describe the collective experience?
Let's see.
Of this Saturn pod.
Wow. All right. Let's see. I suppose when I think of Snowcrest, I think of green for me because I'm green to that game.
Okay.
And it also sounds like it's good for green Euro players.
Yeah. Fair.
And as far as Farben goes, well, I have to play the multicolour card. Just, on principle.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately, I played the multicolour card a few turns ago, so it's stuck with white.
Fair enough. Look, I think Farben I'd probably give grey, just because it's very easy to put whatever colour you like onto Farben and to bring your own experience to it. It definitely, I haven't had the chance to play it yet, look forward to it, but definitely seems that kind of game where the effort that you lend to it, it rewards back with a bit of thought and a group that's willing to engage. It's going to pay back the dividends, but it's a bit of a blank canvas. So, yep, maybe grey. For Snowcrest, I think I might go like an orange or something. There's a level of risk there with Snowcrest where you have to think a little bit about what moves you're going to make. Maybe the art's a bit deceptive about everything's going to be fine and it's just a snowy wonderland. But actually there's some risks and, Bronson might anger the spirits and burn down your village.
Yes, yes. Well, we all know I'm a fiend for juniper.
Yeah. Like, get out of that juniper, Bronson!
Well, hey, much like Saturn and its return, this podcast will return in about a fortnight.
Yeah.
We won't make you wait 29 years for the next one.
No, that's true. You'll have to wait for at least that long until we have another Saturn-themed episode, I guess.
Yeah. We'll see what uptick is, like 100% of pod listeners loved that reference.
Yeah.
We're committing.
Yeah. Put in the comments if you'd like more astrological knowledge.
Yeah, from two people that don't really know that much about it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Hey, I watched an aurora. I'm now
That's
amazing
true.
at this.
That's true. And I know that Mercury is always and objectively in retrograde.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm happy to confirm that with the brown cats.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for getting bored with us.
We look forward to getting bored with you next time.
This has been another episode of The Board Crew. Thanks for listening. Join the conversation by rolling over to our socials. Just search The Board Crew on Facebook.
Is meaningless outside of Flip 7.
Yeah. Oh man, I got a 210. Legend.
Yeah. Like, can't go into work and go like, well, yesterday I
then again,
210.
Yeah, unless you're on that ELO, I guess.
Yeah.
That would be one's position.